Hello! I finally broke down and decided to get a pathfinding system. Writing my own was a little too arduous, but I learned a lot from the project. And I found a good one, A Pathfinding. It's actually the most commonly used pathfinder for RTSs. It has a lot of variability. I bought the $100 version, but I only spent $90 because I had a coupon. There's actually a $10 version, which I found out later would have worked for my purposes, but I didn't know that at the time I bought it. So implementation, it's actually pretty easy. You create an empty game object, then after you do that, you go to components, and you go to add, and you go to pathfinding, and add Pathfinder, and this pops up. So after you do that, you go over to graphs, and I clicked on recast graph, and I changed the cell size, and I increased the walkable height and the walkable climb and the slope, and I resized it. And now when I scan, it goes over every single thing on the terrain except what I specifically put a script on. So all of these rocks, they actually have this thing called raycast mesh objects set to unwalkable, and that's what lets the computer know that the mesh can't go over that. But when I built the mesh, the reason why I changed walkable height and walkable climb is so that the mesh would cover the entire terrain, because I have a separate feature that decides what's too steep and what's not. So after that, the A# Pathfinder was basically done. Next, I went and built my marine. I just grabbed a brand new marine, and I wrote a new movement script called Soldier Movement. I created an AI path, which is absolutely essential. And I didn't really change much of anything in this. I just created it and left it the way it was. Then I created a raycast modifier. And what that does is it makes it so that it doesn't zigzag all over the place, but it goes in a straight line to its destination. Now it originally came looking like this. I clicked the use graph raycasting and unclicked the use physics raycasting, and that's how it got like that. Now we go over to my scripts. My soldier movement is actually a whole lot simpler since I reduced a lot of things. I got a few variables, a start function that fills them in. I got the same update to get the reassign rally point, and it's actually the exact same thing as before, except now I have this variable called path, which is actually a script from the A#, and I go to path.destination, which is where the path is going to set to, and just set that equal to my vector3 rally point. And that works for that. To make him do the walk animation, I took out my animation script. I'll have to make a new one. I'm just testing movement right now. But I got anim.play walk and stand idle, and I use path.reached end of path as true or false to determine whether he should be walking or just standing. The next thing I did is slope. I wanted to make sure that he walks slower when he goes uphill, and I actually used almost the exact same up and downhill slope thing that I was doing 3 videos back. The only difference is it's simpler because now I have path.maxSpeed equals speed times the cosine of slope. And then the next thing I did is I had to readjust my tree script. I did that in the last video, but it turns out I can't put a rigid body on A sharp. I don't know what it is about A sharp, but if you add a rigid body to your character, he just walks around in circles and it messes everything up. So it turns out that not even using a rigid body made my tree script more efficient. Because what I do now is I draw a line straight from the main camera to wherever the soldier is standing. And if it goes through the tree, that's when the tree disappears. Before I was just doing a radius, and sometimes like if the tree's off in the corner, the camera angle would cut it off even if it reached the radius. But now it works a lot better. So my tree script, pretty much the same at the beginning. Got to get your radius, and then I also started getting the height, which is just topsize.y, and now I make the center of the tree radius. So basically for the tree, I'm making this variable right here move up to a certain level so that it can see the actual leaves of the tree, not just be at the bottom. And I had to set center to a vector 3 and input the height there. It took me a while to figure out that I couldn't just modify center.y. The chop and restore are pretty much the same, except now you go straight to chop and then it adds 1. And then if that's more than 0, which it almost always will be, you set active to false, and then when you click restore, it subtracts that, but it only restores the tree if soldiers under tree equals 0. So next after that, I had to create search for or check for tree, and it's pretty much just a simple raycast. I had to get a direction which is from the main camera to the soldier, and then plug it into a raycast. I made an if statement to check and see if the game object is a tree before it goes any further. And then so it wasn't adding a new tree every fraction of a second, I said if it already has the name of the tree it just found, it shouldn't keep going through the loop. Then for right here, the very first tree is actually null. But if it's not the first tree, then if you're leaving one tree and moving to another, the old tree will lose a soldier because it clicks on the restore. And if there are no soldiers, it'll set the top part back to active. And then whatever your new tree is will be the hit.transport game object. And now that's tree. And I imported a script. It gets the component from the tree and it sets it to chop so that it chops the new tree. And that's pretty much it. Around any obstacle, I don't have to do a lot of complex math. He just knows to move out of the way. The trees will automatically move out of the way as soon as the soldier gets close. Even if I give him a complex task that involves a lot of different obstacles to go around, he'll guide back and forth, and I don't have to do tons and tons of trigonometry just to get it working. The A sharp definitely was a sound investment, but like I said, I learned a lot. Thank you for watching another episode of SS Street Fighter. Leave a like, leave a comment, and click subscribe to join the Street Fighter army. I'd also like to send a thank you to my Patreon supporter, Charles.